Good morning, fourth years. We're going to look at stem cells now. So, a slow start. For the first few weeks after fertilization, your zygote, so your fertilized egg cell, splits in two every day to make a bundle of smaller cells. So you can see you've got your fertilized egg cell, and then it splits through however many divisions that is to become a ball of cells. After a week, the zygote is called an embryo. This is something you can write into your notes. First cells formed are called stem cells. The gap you have to write stem cells is a bit small, unfortunately, in the booklet. I apologise for that. These are unspecialised cells capable of developing into many different types of cell. So what that means is, unlike our skin cells, which are very, very good at being skin cells, or the cells in our eye that allow light through, or the cells at the back of our eye that allow light to be absorbed, those cells are all very good at their own function, but would be terrible at each other's. The cells that allow light to get through the front of your eye would be very poor skin cells, just like the cells that absorb light at the back of your eye would be very poor at allowing the light through. So those would be specialized cells. These cells, stem cells, are completely unspecialized. They are still able to make any kind of cell they want. They're found in the early embryo, so we call them embryonic stem cells. There are two types of stem cells we'll talk about. Embryonic is the first one. So the cells in these early embryos are embryonic, and they can differentiate, specialize into any type of cell. When the embryo contains about 500 cells, the cells stop being the same and they start to differentiate. So they start to become different types of cells. You wouldn't get a mature blood cell or bone cell, skin cell or nerve cell in this ball of 500, but the cells that will eventually become brain cells, at that point they could no longer become bone. Stem cells no longer form two new stem cells when they divide. Instead, one of the dotted cells becomes a tissue cell. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky, if you bear with me. Your stem cell here can differentiate into anything at once. When it divides by mitosis, it makes two daughter cells. One of them remains as a stem cell, and one of those daughter cells will differentiate and become a normal body cell. The reason for this is you start off with 500 cells. When you're born, you have millions of cells. What you don't want to do at the 500 cell stage is turn all of those cells into tissue cells. You've then run out of stem cells and you're no longer able to make more cells. So you want to keep at least, if all 500 of those divided, you would get 1,000 cells, keep 500 of those as stem cells. Tissue cells continue to divide and differentiate each time, becoming more and more specialized. So that stem cell would become a tissue cell. It's a little bit more differentiated. It would divide and become a bit more differentiated, until from that initial stem cell you can have fully mature nerve cells, bone cells, muscle cells, blood cells, etc. Through fetal and embryonic development, the number of stem cells eventually decreases. Once you get to kind of mid-fetal development, there would be no embryonic stem cells left. We do still have a little pool of stem cells called adult stem cells. Now, just like with embryonic stem cells, adult stem cells, when they divide in your body right now, they form new stem cells, but also specialized cells as well. So a stem cell is any undifferentiated cell in the body which can divide by mitosis to produce new stem cells or to produce specialized cells for different functions. They're very important because they're the cells that allow you to do growth and development. If you think about one of your nerve cells on this page, that weird, really complicated looking cell trying to go through mitosis, that is overly complicated. These kind of cells would not go through mitosis. Red blood cells don't even have nuclei. So it's only really the stem cells, the adult stem cells that are left in your body that would go through cell division. So we've discussed already self-renewal and differentiation. You need to keep both so that you still have stem cells, but also you have differentiated cells. You need to both produce new stem cells and also differentiated cells. We've talked about the fact that it's embryonic in tissue. Embryonic stem cells are able to form cells of any type. So in the early embryo, the cells have to be able to form bone, muscle, brain, etc. Adult stem cells aren't quite that capable. So the stem cells in your body just now, the stem cells in your blood are able to form things like the blood, white blood cells, red blood cells, neutrophils, eosinophils, lymphocytes, whatever fancy red blood cell, white blood cell names there are. The blood stem cells can form any of those, but blood stem cells can't form, for example, muscle cells. Muscle stem cells can form dark and light, straighted and smooth. They can form lots of different types of muscle cell, but they can't form bone and they can't form neurons. And similarly, the nerve stem cells can form all the different brain and nerve cells, but can't form, for example, your lungs. So adult cells are still very good. They're still able to make lots of different types of tissue, but they're much more limited than embryonic stem cells, which could divide to form and differentiate into any of these types of cells. Blood contains red and white blood cells that are repeatedly replaced by new new blood cells produced by stem cells. These stem cells are found in the bone marrow. Stem cells are important because they allow growth and they allow repair. So we're going to do a little bit on specialisation just to make sure we understand it. The basic idea of specialisation and the levels of an organism are important. The exact examples aren't particularly important. So we should know that cells are the basic unit of life. So we've got unicellular organisms that are able to perform all the functions of a multicellular organism, but they're still slightly limited by the fact that they only form from one cell. Multicellular organisms, as I've said before, we specialise. We have cells that only do skin, only do muscle, only do bone. Our cells form what are called tissues, which are a group of cells which together form the same function. But then there's groups of tissues which together will form the same function, and that would be what we call an organ. And there's groups of organs that together form the same function. So we'll look at that here just now. So the cells of, for example, your heart, if we take the muscle cells in your heart, they form a muscle tissue. So you can imagine a picture of in fact, on page 8 of your booklet, you can see a muscle cell forming a muscle tissue, forming an organ, which is the heart. So the cell forms a tissue. Together, the tissues form organs. So these organs might be formed from muscle tissue, connective tissue, bone in some organs, blood, kind of a lining tissue. These groups of cells that have the same function, different types of tissues are all needed to work together to make an organ. And similarly, different organs are needed to help make a system. So your digestive system has lots of completely different organs. Large intestine, small intestine, duodenum, jejunum, all these kind of different organs in your digestive system, your teeth, they work together to form a system, and all your systems form the organism. So cells make tissues, tissues make organs, organs make systems, systems make organisms. You can come up with a mnemonic. It could be Kathy took oranges, so organised, or something better. How is the body organised? We have systems. Digestive system made up of lots of organs, including the mouth, the gullet, etc. So we're going to go through quickly some of these systems. As I said, the exact ones aren't very important for the purposes of the course, but to fill in page 9 of your notes, it might be useful. So reproductive system produces sex cells and allows us to reproduce. The digestive system breaks food down and provides the energy which travels around our bloodstream and helps our body work. Respiratory systems controls breathing. So this is what oxygenates the blood and removes things like carbon dioxide from the blood. Your endocrine system is one with the hormones. It has hormones that control things like growth, energy production, sugar levels, things like that. Your lymphatic system collects tissues from the body and returns it to the blood. It also cleans it through your lymph nodes. Your excretory systems remove waste from the blood and the rest of the body and put it into the urine. Circulatory systems consist of the heart and the network of blood vessels that carry blood around the body. Oxygen and food are carried to the cells. Waste and carbon dioxide are removed from the cells. And the nervous system, it controls and coordinates the body. So it decides what you do and understands the world around you. With the muscular system, layers of muscle that cover the body, it allows it to relax and contract and produce movements. And the skeletal system, which provides support, protection, sites for muscle attachment, and lots of other stuff. So every cell in your body contains the same nucleus. You can move the nucleus from one and put it in another, and it'd be fine. But it's which genes are switched on. So the genes in a muscle cell would only be the genes switched on in a muscle cell are only the ones that allow it to perform the function of a muscle cell. And similarly, the genes in a nerve cell only allow it to perform the function of a nerve cell. Just put this up because in your booklet on page 10, 11, and 12, it has lots of boxes for you to fill in. In terms of red blood cell, if you don't want to copy it in just now, we cover it in the blood topic. In terms of sperm and egg, if you don't want to fill it in just now, we cover it in the reproductive system topic. In terms of muscle and nerve, we cover that in the next key area. And then all the planty ones, we will cover at the end of this unit when we look at the structure of a leaf. So you can use the slides to copy the answers. So red blood cells, you can pause the video and look at that. Sperm cells, pause the video and look at that. But if you want, you can also just wait until we get to the part of the course that concentrates on these things. Unfortunately, you will need to learn all the different parts of a plant leaf and what they do. Let's go. But I'll just for the purposes of completion, I'll put this up. A brief version would be the root hair cells at a microscopic level allow water to come into these vessels. They travel up the plant through what's called the xylem, which is just big hollow straws. They're actually dead. They're strengthened by something called rings of lignin. When that reaches the leaf, the water that's transported in the xylem vessel is put out into a spongy mesophyll, and the palisade mesophyll, which is beside it, is able to use that water and use the light from the sun that comes in through the leaf to do photosynthesis. The top of the leaf has epidermal cells which cover it and protect it, but these are obviously transparent because you want the light to get through to the palisade cells. Once sugar is made by the palisade mesophyll, it can be transported up and down the plant through what's called the phloem, P-H-L-O-E-M. There is no oral exam in biology, so don't worry about the spelling of the pronunciation of mesophyll and phloem. And the guard cells are in the leaf, what allows the gases to get in and out, and unfortunately also for water to get in and out. Again, if you want, you can pause this, but we will come on to all that again when we do the leaf section. There's a Kahoot, which we may do later on in the week. Hopefully that allows you to fill in the majority of your booklet. There's still, I think, page 13 and the what you need to know questions at the end. If you've got any questions, please do ask, and there will be a live session covering this as well.